To discuss Moe Norman's life and his impact on golf would take a few hours, and there are already a ton of documentaries on this man's accomplishments and his quirks. But today, I will try to explain why he was able to win 55 tournaments, set 30 course records, shoot 55 in a tournament, and be admired by all the greats who have attested Moe to be one of the best ball strikers of all time. Today, let's use two of his swings to break down his cause and effect, and how many of you watching at home could take some of this advice on how to utilize some of his motions to give you a more consistent swing. If you do enjoy this video, please support us with a like, leave a comment, share it with other golf and swing enthusiasts, and even subscribe, as we donate proceeds from this channel to our development academies across Southern California to the Heal the Hood Foundation to help introduce golf to low-income children in South Africa. But enough of the tongue twisters. Get ready to learn about the swing of the great Moe Norman. Good evening, Line Golf Academy members and guests, and welcome back. We have Moe Norman on the screen, and we have a basic line setup today to show you. And we have heard from many people that he has a one-plane motion, and we're going to look at evidence of this one-plane motion, but we're also going to look at evidence that it's not really a one-plane motion. He just sets up for a one-plane motion. Left side of the screen, we've got the right brace line, the impact line, and his head brace line. Right side of the screen, we have his spine angle line, his back brace line, head brace line, and also his setup plane line. Now, traditionally, we like to see that shoulder tilt line also parallel with that plane line, and you can see he sets up much higher in terms of his angles. Now, that spine angle line and lower plane intersect exactly 90 degrees, but they intersect much higher in terms of where they cross. That is mostly in his chest. Now, the left side of the screen, this is where he starts his swing, but let's take a look at the shoulder tilt action and also compare it to where his spine and his hands and his golf ball are connected. And if you know me by now, if you follow me for some time, you know I'm a huge fan of this, where all these are lined up. So again, here is another great ball striker, arguably the best in the world that has ever lived, sets up like this. So you can probably learn something from that. Has no glove in his grip, which is what I do. Not to say I hit it like Moe Norman, but it's more comfortable for me. Grip placements is fairly neutral. His setup is very wide, and he does this for a purpose because he doesn't really rotate as much as modern day golfers. What he does is move side to side, and he uses a lot of hand arms, and instead of rotation, he uses lateral shift in terms of the center of his body, and we see first evidence of this in his backswing. If you blink, you will miss it. Let's take a look at where the club is at parallel. We can see a nice one-piece takeaway. We don't see the arms breaking off from the center of the chest. So as we get to the top of his swing, and that's the top of his swing, we can see that his hands are still in line with the center of his chest, and he has established himself a pretty decent width of arc with lack of turn. Now, if you notice that his hips are hardly moving and his shoulders have hardly turned, and it's hard to tell from this side, but we're going to draw a straight line down there to see the width of his circle. Right side of the screen, let's take it in the same position, but now this is where I believe he is not a one-plane motion, because that first takeaway, he is pulling his whole arms inside as one piece, and he's getting to where typical golfers appear now. You can see the arms are hanging down lower than they were. His head has come out of his posture, and we can see as a result he gets a little taller spine angle. This is where normal setup should be at the backswing. So he does get to a normal setup midway point. So you can see one of the reasons why he had to stand so far away from the golf ball is to tilt and turn with his upper body to get that club down to its lower plane line. So this is where, if this was a normal setup, you can see that's where that lower plane line is. So in my opinion, he's not necessarily a one-plane swinger. Left side of the screen is a really short backswing. So this is something I want you amateurs to look at, because width of swing is more important than length of swing for most of us, because we don't have the timing involved, engage our hands and arms to get that length, because most of us are not flexible enough, so we get our length with our hands and arms. Now I'm going to draw something here, and hopefully you can keep up with this. Okay, so let's draw a red circle. Let's see if we can kind of make sense of this. Okay, and so why is that circle important? It shows you where the center point of his circle is. Now, the bottom out portion is where that golf ball is. So if we draw a straight line from the golf ball straight up to the sky, this is his center point. Eyeballing it here, but that's basically his center point of his swing, is where I'm going to draw that X. So we can see the center of his chest is connected to his center point. The center of his weighting is connected to that center point. But by keeping his hands relative to that center point, so if we draw where his club shaft is straight up to the sky, we can see it is parallel to the center point of his circle. Now, this is very important, and this is why I believe he was able to be the best ball striker, because he didn't hit it very far, but he hit it accurately. There's stories of him hitting golf balls to a caddy with a catcher's mitt. Now, I don't know how fabricated that is, but it sounds about right. The amount of travel distance between the hands to the center of the swing is very small when you look at the modern day golfers, where their hands are way up over here and us amateurs are way up over there, because we are trying to establish some power by getting our arms to be connected with our wide body turn, but we can't be wide if you don't stretch and flex your body out, which is most of us. So this is a position I want you guys to look at and think about and try to emulate, and we'll leave everything up there to show you that travel between his arms and the center point. Right side of the screen, we're going to take a look. He's going to go from that lower plane line, which again, he rerouted in the backswing, and he's going to reach up to that upper plane line, which in essence is his original plane line in green. So he does get back to that original plane line, but he does so by going to the lower plane line and then back up to the top. So in essence, I can see why this appears to be a one plane swing, but he has a loop to do that one plane swing. So he's gotten to that second plane, but he's also, remember, he's lost some spine angle here. So we draw that again in red. We've lost a little bit of spine angle from his original setup, but he's going to go back to there and try and hit the golf ball. Now, before we get there, let's go back to the beginning and put a little line to see where his edge of his hands are. And before we start that downswing, we can see how very little of rotation he has, but his hands are still somewhat connected to his right shoulder. And if we go to the top of the swing, we see the butt of the club down. It is connected to his right leg, which is great. He's connecting to that right side, and there's very little travel distance between his hands and the golf ball. So everything with Moe Norman was compressing the swing and utilizing lateral motion as opposed to turn. And by doing that, you are keeping your arms and hands in front of you, and it becomes more of a one-piece impact swing instead of uncoiling and timing. And when you uncoil and time, that's where you have to have timing of a god, where most of us don't have that. He is eliminating a lot of this timing. So let's go down to impact. We can see at this point he's going to start that shift left. So there goes that tiny bump left, and we can tell that because the club is still in that same line but has moved closer to the golf ball. Now we've had that initial shift, and we're going to see a little bit more of that shift, and there's going to be less turn and a little bit more tilt. So at the top of his swing, we can see, if you noticed a couple videos ago, we talked about the knees. So the knees are connected here. As we jump into it, we can see that left knee is going to be higher than the right knee, which is going to help him maintain his posture back. So his spine angle is pointing back, but the center of his swing has shifted from this little X here to another X in front of that, but it is in line. Here's another line for you guys in with the golf ball. So everything is about keeping that center connected with the ball while he tilts under. Now, if you notice his feet are very flat, which means there's not a lot of rotation here. So he's doing a really good job of protecting his back. And on the right side of the screen, we can see that same thing. So let's look at the travel of the hands. Now, typically we see those hands dropping down from that secondary plane line to the lower plane line. But since he's already established that first plane line and he has come back to that first plane line, we can see that his arms are not going to go down. But now, because of the lack of turn in the backswing, he is going to turn on the way down and keep him on that plane. So he's going to ride straight down that plane. You can see it never veers off that plane, and that is all turning into the target. So lack of turn on the way back does not necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's where your hand placement is in relation to the downswing, because your downswing is going to have more turn. Now he comes on through, he strikes that golf ball, the club's back on this lower plane line, the hands have still never left that plane line. You can see he's staying in his spine angle, he's not moving past this line here. He's still in that red spine angle, which is the adjusted one from his backswing. As he strikes the golf ball, we can see his hands moved a little bit closer than when they started, but remember, that's because he stood up slightly to get out of that initial setup. Follow through, watch that right foot. We see that right foot stay down well past impact, and again, that's all upper body. So he is very upper body oriented, very grounded with his lower body. So like a tree, if you can figure this out and get this in your motions, you will hit it a lot more solid. You won't hit it as far, but it'll be consistently solid, and you will have some consistency control on your distance, which is the most important thing. We see the escape pattern. Look at that club head. It is now on the secondary plane line, and these arms reach that secondary plane line on the original setup. So if that was the original setup, that's where it should be. So he does a fantastic job of coiling around, still in his spine angle, so he doesn't have to come out as much, because those that come out of as much have to come out of it because that lower body's firing and they're going to hurt their lower back. But this follow through here is about as compact as you can see. What has moved the most is the turn through. So this is like a one-piece impact. Left side of the screen, look at that right foot. Right foot stays down, still staying down. We can see the hands and the club head's kind of veering off, but it's there. But where is his hands and his chest? They're still connected together. I know we got lines for Africa, but hopefully this makes sense for you. And as we come on through, we can see the right foot stays down, upper body rotates, no pressure on the lower back because he's not exerting any forces, comes on up slightly, and we can see those hands are still out in front of the chest, nowhere near parallel. So what can you learn from this swing? It's obviously very repeatable, and that's the key. It is obviously good on the body, and that's the key to keep your life of your golf swing longer. We all have two expiration dates. We have the date that we're no longer on the planet Earth and the date that your golf swing expires. Now hopefully they both do at the same time. You don't want the golf swing to die before you, and by swinging like this, by emulating quiet footwork, by reducing your turn on the way back, keeping your hands out in front of you, and getting your body more involved on the way through without spinning out, these are some of the things that you can work on, but I would not recommend it unless you're working with a certified coach, PJ, LPJ, that can help you out, because this is not for everybody. Clearly it's not. We've had many people try to decipher the swing, many people try to use it and have failed miserably, but we can learn some good habits from that swing. So I hope that helps you. If you like this, hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Fairways and greens.